All right, everybody, welcome to Metal Mentorship. Every week we do this where we bring on somebody that, without a doubt, is a professional in their space, and they're here to help you. So this is just not a Q&A, question back and forth. This is a help situation. Let's use their knowledge, their wisdom to excel your brand, your position, your story to the next level. I am honored to introduce somebody that's been a great friend of mine for the last 15 years, Simon Mannering, an amazing Australian who I believe now actually has his U.S. citizenship. You're an American now, aren't you?
I do. We're fully fledged. We're dual citizenships. We're in.
You're in. I love the new home. It's a beautiful background.
You know what? This is somebody else's background. I thought it was much cheaper from an interior design point of view just to get an aspirational background. Saved me a fortune. Highly recommend the strategy.
So Simon, obviously you've inspired me to always say we're about the we and not the I. And the whole we concept is, I think it's an embodiment of what our community is. It's about us working together. But sure, going with a we approach in a corporate space, it's easier said than done, isn't it?
It is, but it's increasingly necessary for two reasons. One, all of these challenges we face out there, like climate crisis or coronavirus and so on, you know, we can only solve for them by working together. And as a result, you're seeing all of these companies showing up in meaningful ways, whether they're repurposing their supply chain for PPE equipment or, you know, you've got Dyson, you've got Tesla making ventilators. I mean, the examples go on and on. And so I think in a way, business is uniquely qualified. They're the only ones with the resources and the expertise to show up at scale, you know?
So if you look at that whole social status point where you have the I at the top, I individual, then we have the we, and then we have the us. Let me see if I can explain the we and us differentiator real quick. The we is Microsoft and the we is Apple, and we're better than you type attitude, regardless of if they're good for the environment, they're good for society. They believe they have a competitive edge, and in some ways to dominate and then eventually squash their competition and then to acquire. I'm just saying in the corporate space. Where the us is we're in it together. I want to think of like 9/11. The United States was in that together. It became an us as an entity. And I thought this COVID thing would actually make it a global us as in a world, but it's not happening. Going from an I to a we to an us, the we is great, but getting to an us is, I don't even understand how it can happen.
Well, a couple of things have to happen. One is you've got to kind of take off the various hats we wear. You've got your personal hat, you've got your professional hat. You've got to really embrace this idea that you're all a stakeholder in society. You're a stakeholder in our survival. You're a stakeholder in our planet. And unfortunately, it's taken something like, you know, COVID-19 to come along and say, hey, humanity, you're all facing this acute pain at the same time to a degree that's really unprecedented historically. And so what's happened is everybody's political divisions and social divisions and so on, they've been suspended for a while. And you've seen small expressions of it. People go on their balconies and applaud, you know, the medical practitioners at the same time every night. You've seen people sending and exchanging masks and equipment around the world and so on. But still there's that instinct of finger pointing. Who's to blame? You know, where did it come from? Who's best qualified to fix it? So there's always this tension between kind of self-interest and selflessness that sort of shows up.
Yeah, and then how about the corporate space? Let's talk about companies that want to make sure they are known for being part of a we environment, meaning we are helping, and we're not forced to help. Like it almost felt like General Motors almost was forced to help, but where companies jumped in to say, we are helping because we felt it's not just good for our brand, but it's great for society.
Yeah, there's a lot of companies that have shown up. I mean, it's such a sliding scale. You've got airline CEOs giving up their pay, which looks great, but they're partly doing that because they're getting this massive bailout because they did all these buybacks of their shares prior to that. At the same time, someone like GM, they opened up the IP around how to build ventilators to all their supply chain. That sounds great because more people are making ventilators, but at the same time, it's a way to, in the best sense, selfishly keep their whole community together because you're all working towards some higher purpose. I think the ones that you really are making a meaningful difference are those who are, you know, I think Mark Benioff at Salesforce, where he announced out of the gate they're not going to do any layoffs for 90 days. I think those who are paying their factory workers more, you know, those essential businesses are really showing up in meaningful ways. I think those who are taking a huge financial hit, like the restaurant industry, but then retooling their kitchens to provide meals for hospitals, that's a really substantive way to show up. So, you know, it's about making sure that you're making a meaningful and measurable impact and also keeping your focus on the other people and not yourself.
So let's be practical and move forward. And the forward point is this. And I'm talking to a lot of guys that own businesses that range from 50 to 500 employees. And many of them said, how right, we had to furlough or lay people off. But now, as we look at moving forward, I've had a lot of fat in my business. I've had a lot of redundancy in my business. Or it's time to change or do some course correction. And I don't need to do what we thought was essential in the past. So I'm not going to hire back a majority of my employees at that next round. How does a business, one, protect their image in the sense of saying, you know, we downsized, but we're doing it for the effectiveness of the business, without saying, yep, we're not hiring people back because we just don't want them and they were bloated. How does a brand protect themselves in that moving forward situation?
Yeah, I mean, protect's an interesting word you chose there, because I don't think there's any way to nice someone to death, to message through this when you've got either people dying of, you know, a virus, or you've got people losing their jobs at a time when, you know, they're in financial crisis. You just have to be transparent. Like, I spend every single day on 5 or 6 calls with either startups, high growth companies, or major corporations. I have this daily diet of this exact question about what you do. And if I was to oversimplify, the only way is to be transparent. You get up there and you say, firstly, number one, your health and financial well-being is our greatest priority. Number two, this is what it's done to the business. Number three, this is what the actions we're taking, as unfortunate as they are, to help navigate through this time, whether it's furloughs and layoffs and so on. Number four, what are we doing to minimize costs and overhead and all these other things to give us the best chance of surviving through this, hiring back the people we want and so on. And then number six is to say, you know what, as with every business out there, it's forced us to not only rethink how we do business, but to make sure that we're prepared to do business in the face of another virus, another crisis, whatever that new normal looks like on the other side. And that's going to mean some very difficult changes. And that's going to mean probably we won't have the same headcount. Now, that has a huge, real and tangible effect on people's lives. But as business owners, we also have a responsibility to kind of keep moving forward and to do it in a way that's relevant to the marketplace and so on. So here's how we're giving back. Here's what we're doing. And here's what it looks like moving forward. To try and dance around it or misrepresent things, it's only going to blow up in your face.
Simon Mannering's joining us. His book is called We First. Came out with that a few years ago. He was working on a brand new book. Do we have the title for the new book?
You know, my publisher, we have a few things dancing around as we speak. You know, that's my disingenuous way of saying I'm not going to tell you.
I know it is. What was the ones that didn't make it? What titles didn't make it? You had to say,
oh God. You know, it's a funny old process. I think writing a book is an exercise in OCD, paranoia, ADD, and everything else. And you kind of focus on different things obsessively. So I probably have 300 titles. I wouldn't know really where to start. You know, the funny old thing about writing a book is, particularly in a fast changing marketplace like this, is writing a book is how you work out what you want to write a book about. You know, I wrote my first book, and only when I finished writing it did I realize what I wanted to write about in the first place. And here's a trick if you've ever thought about writing a book. And this was from my editor, publisher Macmillan at the time, which was, at the end of writing a book, cut off the first chapter, take the last chapter and make it your first chapter, and then retool the entire book based on the presumptions that, as the conclusions as presumptions, and it'll lurch your book forward.
I just want to ask Dr. Michael Breus, how many books do you have? Michael, how many books?
I have 3, and I just signed a deal for a 4th.
Nice.
And what do you think about Simon's suggestion?
I think it's spot fucking on.
That's a technical term.
It is. It is a technical term. Every book I've written, what's ended up happening, every book I've written, the final chapter really is kind of this whole new, it's the conclusion. It's all the things that I was trying to say in a nice, succinct way. And so I've actually done something somewhat similar to that in taking a lot of that material and bringing it to the front, or creating abstracts or things like that that have been very helpful, and then helping me get through the book. Because to be honest, one of the things that you said to me before the call even started, I think, is, you know, people don't read books, right? I mean, they just don't. And so if you can give them these little bite-sized chunks in the beginning, you may actually get somebody to pick up a book and read, for God's sakes, which, holy cow, that would be a miracle at this point.
No, it's true. And I found and I haven't read as many books as you, but when the first book came out, I had, you know, you walk around, you know, go out there and you start speaking, evangelizing about what your ideas are, and you suddenly realize no one else has drunk the Kool-Aid yet.
Nope.
And so what I had to do was reverse engineer the book into these breadcrumbs, like the future of profit is purpose and the evolution of revolution is contribution. And you give people these stepping stones to upgrade their understanding. And, you know, I think too many of us talk in terms of what we want to say instead of speaking in ways that people can listen to or hear. And you need to reverse engineer out of the ears that you're talking to rather than the mouth you're speaking with.
All right, so we're warmed up now, right, Simon? Are you warmed up?
I'm always sweating, Ken.
Okay, no, I want to keep Michael here because Michael is going through a branding complex.
Sure.
And the branding complex is this. Michael, without a doubt, is the sleep doctor. But to sell sleep is tough. It's something we do unconsciously, and it's not really perceived as being, wow, I can't wait to go listen to the sleep doctor.
Right.
Yeah. But we know that sleep is connected to performance. And people that don't sleep enough don't have proper performance. And so much happens in sleep. I'm going to give you enough information, I hope, for you to help rebrand the sleep doctor to whatever the next iteration is going to be. Is that enough information, or do you need more?
Yeah, I mean, let me just respond. And I mean, I'm useless at most things in life. You can ask my wife of 30 years, but I have developed certain muscles over time. And, you know, my first response is your whole thesis and focus on sleep is in fact counterintuitive, because what you're really speaking to is waking people up to the life they're not currently living.
Correct.
So recharacterize sleep as a wake-up call to potentiality, to opportunity, to fulfillment, and all those sorts of things. You know, performance is, you know, a natural, nice, deep furrow into the marketplace and so on. But there's many other aspects to that. So I don't think you're in the sleep business. I think you're in the human being business. That is one click forward. Another is to then say, well, exactly to what end? What version of life am I promising to people? Because to the point about performance, there are 50 different ways in to speak to people. You know, Jim Quick has got memory and brain activation. You've got sleep and so on. So I think to differentiate yourself in an increasingly crowded category and noisy marketplace, you need to be synonymous with a version of life, an aspiration for people that then has dimension to it. I'll give you an example. Tom's came to us and said, you know, when Bain Capital bought them, and they said, everyone knows our how, one for one, but no one knows our why. And so we did work with them, and the distillation of all the work really was, their purpose was to create a world where we live for one another. Now that had a lot of dimension because it spoke to stakeholders and the product verticals. What do I mean? Leadership and employees are there for one another. Employees in the US and around the world are there for one another. Private sector and public sector with their giving partners with their shoes are there for one another. The way of being they own in the world is living for one another, which allows them to speak to all stakeholders, as well as shoes, as well as eyewear, as well as water or coffee, and all the different verticals they were in, as well as allowing you to activate it in regionally specific ways. That's just an example of the end state that you want to drive towards, which is, okay, sleep to what end? Well, sleep is a wake-up call to a new version of life that you get to live every day. Great. What version of life do you want to really kind of own? Is it fulfillment? Is it an innovation lens? Is it an iterative lens where you're constantly equipped to move with the marketplace, where, like in an entrepreneurial sense, you as a human being become exponentially adaptive to the marketplace, which gives you relevance and opportunity and finance and all that sort of thing. So if I was in your situation, I'd reverse engineer out of all the cases that you've dealt with and see if there's a theme that might allow you to ladder up from all the individual cases to that higher order optimization that you provide people through sleep. And then you become synonymous with that. but it has that compressed complexity in it, like I described with Tom's, where, oh, through sleep, that can be applied to this expression of that singular idea.
He's going to be known as a sleep doctor then. You want something more broad or more, I would say, exciting. He needs a sugar to reel them in.
No, what he needs is to what end? You know, sleep is emotional because most people don't get enough. But I would always challenge myself to say, to what end? What version of the individual or all people do you want to be synonymous with in terms of what you promise through? What's the tool of your trade? The tool of your trade is sleep. And here's the thing I want to share about that. The kind of the non-alignment I'm hearing is the same as what I hear in the nonprofit world. A lot of nonprofits will say, oh, we'll say to them, what's your purpose? And they'll go, oh, we support breast cancer research. And you go, well, that's you and 4,000 other nonprofits out there. What is your specific point of view on breast cancer research? So what is Michael's specific point of view on how you can show up in the world as a human being if you more effectively manage the tool of your trade, which is sleep? So, and that, then, you know, you can really apply it to some end. But right now, I think in the absence of that, people will probably look at you and go, well, I'm emotional about sleep, but I don't get enough. But I'm not really interested in sleep because I'm too busy getting stuff done.
Right.
And, but that dichotomy shouldn't exist. Sleep should be in service of the very need they have, which is getting stuff done.
Right.
And so again, maybe mentioning Jim Kwik, with him, it's always about brain optimization, which can then be unpacked in a million different ways. What is that kernel at the heart of all the different cases you've done for hotels and everybody else? What are you really selling? Because it's not sleep.
So my next book is called Exhausted, How to Go from Dragging Ass to Kicking Ass. And it's all about energy. So I'm doing exactly what you say. I'm flipping that idea and becoming the wake doctor, if you will, or the energy doctor, or because the only reason people sleep is to wake up and spend time with their family and their friends and careers and things like that. So I completely see where you're coming from. And I think that makes a lot of sense. Having a book about it, I think, will help kind of cement that idea, because I'm going to have to pivot from all of my historic, literally 15 years of sleep information and start to be moving people to understand that they need energy information.
Well, I want to give you a little bit of a thought.
Please.
I think you could have a very powerful platform, a new book, and the book is called Wake.
Right.
And as I said at the top, it's about recharacterizing sleep in the service of how you show up when you're awake. It's also about waking up to opportunity, waking up to ideas, waking up to new relationships.
Yeah.
And it's also about waking up to your true potential and, you know, all aspects of life. So, and the final iteration is wake is the effect you have in the world. So like a boat leaves a wake, it leaves a ripple effect. So
I love that.
So when you show up more fully, you will not only be wake, you will not, you know, be wake yourself, you will awaken to all these opportunities, and then how you're showing up will leave a wake in terms of other people's lives, communities' lives, and then this highest order, leave a dent in the universe in terms of the wake you leave on the world at large. So be the person who is in the service of waking everyone up. You get up on stage and you go, every single one of you is here because you're interested in sleep. And I've got to tell you, you're here for exactly the wrong reasons, because sleep is in service of something far more powerful, which is how you show up in the world when you're awake.
Got it.
Make your check payable to Simon Mannering. Let's get that. And that's it. I just said he's warmed up. So anybody that's watching this right now, put right now in the chat that you want to really test Simon's skills, because that right there was child's play for him. Child's play.
Well, what I will say is this, you know, we're all ADD. No one reads books, as Michael said. Coaches have distilled down their entire platform to a single word. So, you know, you've got Malcolm Gladwell had outliers or tipping point. You know, you should be famous for the idea of what it means to be wake, you know, to really leave a wake in the world, you know, to co-opt all the business world and personal development world, but through the filter, the lens of one word, wake. For me, it was we first, and its counterpoint, its enemy is me first. Compress complexity. Then your entire library of books and everything you offer is about dimensionalizing all those different aspects of wake. And when you really unpack that and you look at it through the lens of all the people you've cared for, and then you look at it through the lens of your corporate partners, and then you look at it through the lens of systemic problems through people who are overworked or underserved or whatever else it might be, I think you're going to be shocked about just how everything you're doing already will be turned inside out and be much more positively repurposed.
All right. So other people want to test your skills. Let's go to Brad. Brad, what do you want to do? What's the goal here?
Well, what I've been doing is trying to figure out how I'm going to re-strategize. I do music for commercial and TV. So you know how TV shows have sponsors and sponsors have a target audience? I help production companies make sure that the music in their shows appeal to the target audience they're trying to reach. So with the downturn right now, a lot of companies, the production has stopped. Yeah. So I'm trying to figure out how to pivot myself. And I had a nephew who did something really interesting that made me think about how I want to do this. And he had a cleaning business, and obviously no one wants people cleaning their homes or coming in right now. So he pivoted and changed himself to a coronavirus cleansing business. So he goes into offices and companies and helps them, you know, and it's the same thing. They put on a glove and a mask and spray a disinfectant, but they're doing the same thing. But he kind of pivoted what he's selling, and I think a clever way, and doing great. So I'm just trying to think of how I could support production companies and what I could do differently. Because to me, it seems like, you know, everybody in my business, we're all back at the starting line. Like some people had advantages and have been doing it longer and doing this, but right now everybody's back at the starting gate. So there's a real opportunity to do something different and for someone to leap forward, and who are going to be the new people who leap forward and do things different. So,
yeah, I have a thought there, which is, and it's a jujitsu move that allows you to reverse engineer back into what you already do right now, but in a totally reframed context. And if what you were doing before, whether it's through the lens of commercial or film and television world, was helping people understand how to reach their target audiences, given this reset moment where everyone's been paralyzed and confused and is unclear about the future, you can turn that on its head and say, you are no longer in the target audience business, you are in the audience target business. And what I mean by that is you will help production companies of all types and content producers of all types understand what those audiences want now, because they don't know what to produce, because they don't know what their people are thinking, that they're certainly not doing or buying the way they were because of what's happening. So what you can do is turn around and say, no one will be able to move forward in the production world until we understand exactly where our different audiences are and what they're going to be interested in moving forward from a content point of view, from a distribution point of view, and so on. So in a sense, you've got to make it unfamiliar but familiar enough in that they understand it but don't understand it. In the same way, We First was a head scratcher, but people understand Me First and they go, oh, okay, it's a shift. In the same way, you say you are not in the business of target audiences. You're in the business of audience targets, in the sense that we are partnering with you to accelerate, to condense time, to get back to market with content production and so on, by really looking at the audiences you're trying to reach and researching and providing a line of sight as to what they're going to be interested now in terms of content and how they want to consume it. Because without that, there's no business to be had. There's absolutely nothing to be done. You've just got a whole bunch of people talking in a way that no one's listening to, and those people you're talking to don't want to do what you want them to do. You're at a stalemate. It's an
interesting thing, real quick. Simon, what I've noticed, and I was on a talk this morning, I turned on TV the other night and I saw it was like a beer commercial. And in the beer commercial, people were on the beach playing volleyball, having fun. And I'm realizing this is an old commercial. This is not our lives today.
Yeah.
And it was almost like it was a satire for a second. It's like, what the hell are they doing?
Yeah.
And that brand, to me, they're deaf and blind.
Yeah. Being tone deaf right now is suicidal, even more so than normal. And there's a few examples out there. Maybe it's just a lazy media buyer, or they were just too lazy to cancel and retool or whatever. But, it's not to say that you're suddenly a consumer segmentation or research company. But if I stand back logically and I go, what value could you provide to the same roster of customers you had before, who are all sitting there saying, we don't know what to do because no one wants to do what we used to tell them to do, which is go outside or buy shit. In which case, what's the logical starting point? Well, we've got to kind of help them know what people will listen to or what people will do. Because only after that can you then engage your whole stable, your whole community of partners to then produce content to that end, whether it's virtual, whether it's whatever. And so you might sit there and go, okay, I'm going to build a small coalition, a cohort of 4 or 5 different researchers in the film and television and consumer research world. We're going to spin up this little research group, and we're going to go out to all our current partners and saying the marketplace is at a reset moment. And there's no point in trying to reach out to a target audience until we know what those audience are actually willing for you to target. So let's help you understand that so that you can go to market sooner with confidence in a way that you're going to get a response.
Well, I do the music portion, so I don't head up the whole show, but I will help them with the branding of the music aspect.
Yeah. Well, one comment on the music aspect, and I mean, they're very different animals, but we're just jumping around for fun. I don't think you're in the music business right now in this triage phase and maybe the recovery phase before we come back to the new normal. I always believe we're in the human being business. As I said to Michael, you know, when I worked on Nike as a writer for years, we weren't in the sport business. We're in the athlete business.
Right.
I think right now you're in the human spirit business, in the sense that you have to curate and provide and inspire music that is not one note in the sense that it's all about being sad, and it's not one note in the sense that it's all about uplifting, but you have to help people really understand the role, the sensorial role that music can play to help them navigate this space. I mean, you're seeing these impromptu DJs getting out there and getting 100,000 people live streaming with them. You know, you're seeing free performances from the Met. You're seeing anyone who ever picked up a guitar doing a bloody Facebook Live, whether they should be or not. You know, so really look at what you do and say, how can you use your tool of trade, music, to provide what would be a curated, you know, library of music you've already done, nostalgic reminders of music you've scored for different shows that people like, or whatever else it might be, to just add value to people's lives, to give them choices when they're feeling down, to actually say to them, you can have some fun with it, where you think, you've got a playlist that says, when you no longer believe that, 5 glasses of Chablis on a Wednesday night is too many,
Okay.
and you've got a playlist.
Let's go, since you are now really warming up. I could feel the energy. Akira, is that your real background, or is that just come on, buddy, that's a great background if that's real.
It is real. It is real. I'm not touching a screen back here. It's a beautiful day. I had to take advantage of it.
Yep, smart move. Hey, let's go over to Sani. Sani, you want to test Simon's skills? Go for it.
Yes. Hi, Simon.
Hey,
so,
hi.
To give you a little background, my agency helps tech startups to take them from idea to revenue. That's what we do work-wise. After listening to your talks at Metal, I started thinking, what's our human purpose? What do we do for the person, not for the tech? So the purpose that we defined was we support the economic empowerment of tech founders by helping them quickly move from idea to revenue.
Right.
So the question is,
let me respond to that. And, we're doing some work with IBM right now. We've done a lot of work with SAP. We actually helped relaunch a software company called Matrix up in the Silicon Valley last year. So just a little bit of recent familiarity with the tech world. What I would say is, to revenue or economic empowerment, for me, the constant question that's shown up in my head over the last 10 years of doing this is, to what end? Because, money is not an end in itself, or if it is, it's a short-term solve. It really has to be a tool to some other end. And I think there's an intersection between economic empowerment, entrepreneurial spirit, and meaningful impact that is yet to be articulated. Because I don't think anyone ever went through the crazy idea of starting a company just to make money. Or if they did, it doesn't sustain them over the long term. And so, when we were doing some thinking around Metal with Ken, I think we landed on a purpose statement around, empowering the curious to be their best. And it was all about...
Inspiring the curious to be we inspire the cures to be greater. Something. Now I got to remember.
Yeah, to be greater. But the idea was that end state was to be greater with the flexibility to be whatever that greatness looks like. In your case, I feel like you're still running up against the same wall. It's like it's no longer cardboard. You put some nice polished glass on it, but it's still a wall, which is economic empowerment. I am suggesting you go one step further than that. I think, you know, in our experience of all the different clients who have an entrepreneurial lens, there is certain aspects that you can choose from. You know, one aspect is being entrepreneurial means you want to disrupt the status quo in your industry or the world at large. It means you want to solve for grand challenges. It might mean on a personal level, you want to find fulfillment and give your life significance. It might mean that you think there is a better way that has less impact on the planet. But if you were to look at, not only are you entrepreneurs, but you're with startup entrepreneurs through the lens of tech, what are they all driving towards? You know, we just worked with Brandless last year, Tina Sharkey and her team, and, you know, they had a really strong tech background and they leveraged tech very effectively. And, you know, but ultimately their goal was to democratize access to food, especially in food deserts around the country. So technology was to that end. And I would challenge yourself, because your clients self-qualify, they self-define themselves. And if you look at your last 2 years of clients and look at that and go, at the end of the day, when you're sitting there having 3 beers too many with them and you had 10 of them in a room, what the hell are they all about? Like, they've all got 10 million bucks on the table. Awesome, yay team. But then to what end? What are they trying to do? What is that singular organizing principle? Is it disruption? Is it innovation? Is it fulfillment? Is it a relentless curiosity? Is it a, you know, whatever it might be? But I think you have to frame your purpose in human terms, an emotional term, a fundamental human attribute, because then the tool of your trade, as I said, is technology, but it's not an end in itself. And I don't think economic empowerment goes fast enough. I think it might be empowerment of another type, and economic is just one part of that.
So how do you twist it? How do you make it so it's more of a soundbite?
Well, and instead of me projecting what it might be, I mean, nothing is valuable if it's done in a vacuum. It does need to be informed by some data, in the sense that technology can mean many different things. But so let me ask you this. Give me a sense of what industries this tech is being applied to, these entrepreneurs.
Our most recent project is in the music tech space.
Mm-hmm. And what are they trying to do?
So the product, so we created a platform which is a marriage between social media and e-commerce, specifically for the DJs industry. So buy, sell, trade, exchange, borrow, DJ equipment. That's what they're doing. And
let me give you an example of what I might mean. And you know, there's a data set of one, but you know, it's this idea that your purpose is to unlock economic empowerment, to scale, you know, I think, you know, it to be to scale human, it could be human potential, because that would apply to all businesses. I'm trying to straddle that specific example on all businesses, but I think structurally it could be to unlock, because it's something they don't have without you, and they're focused on an MVP and so on, and without revenue, they can't go to scale. So you go to unlock economic potential, to empower, you know, human potential, or to power market transformation, or to power disruptive possibilities. Like, look at that example and others, and reposition economic empowerment as the stepping stone to that end state. And if the DJ thing is one thing, this intersection between music and social, it's all about taking something to scale, which is why I'm using to scale blah, blah, or to reach exponential blah, blah. Like, you are that stepping stone to explosive growth. And all you need to do now is characterize what that growth looks like in terms of potential or disruption or innovation or whatever else you might think. And then it makes sense of the economic empowerment bit.
Simon Mannering's joining us. Smart guy. Very handsome, by the way. We all aspire to look as good as Simon.
Thank you so much, Ken. This is actually part of the backdrop. It's actually not.
It was all,
yeah, idiots.
Real-time Photoshop.
No.
Let's go over to Jake. Jake, let's unmute you. All right, Jake, what's your question for Simon?
Hold on, let me get in the chat so I don't miss any part of it. So basically, I was originally starting a skincare company that was a lot of performance skin products for men, and I thought, you know, try to be like Nike. But when I went to the actual metal group where you spoke, changed a lot of my opinions, you know, focus on the actual human element of it, about people showing up and, you know, being present as opposed to focusing on the ease of use of the product or what results it does on the, you know, what people get out of it. And so I've dug into that a little bit, you know, finding a diamond in the rough and like rough skin and some other things like that. But I'm wondering if there's a level deeper than, you know, just kind of reinventing yourself, showing up. Is there, you know, kind of catchphrase or something that's a little more?
Well, you know, why don't you, real quick, why don't you tell them what inspired you to make this product line?
Okay. So about 2017, January 2nd, I had a ski accident where I hit some ice and my ski popped off and hit me in the face and basically cut my entire nose open. So had to be, you know, whisked down the mountain, stitches, 1.5 years out of the sun, scar removal treatments, all this kind of stuff. And so when I would try to buy concealer, which my girlfriend gave to me at the time, I had to go to Sephora or some place where the education, the application, million tones, it just was not made for guys. It was not made for anyone who wants a simple process and a simple result. It did not feel inclusive. You couldn't do it at home. So there was a lot lacking in that industry. So our main two products are a hyaluronic acid serum, which helps scar reduction and dry skin, and concealer. I'm trying to sell it to men as opposed to women. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, my first response to that is, you know, there's always a creative tension at the heart of any brand that really captures people's imagination, because there's some torsion there, and I'll explain what I mean. Because you have a particular circumstance that was caused by the accident, but so many men, unlike women, don't have the luxury of using concealer or makeup, for want of a better word. Yet, for various reasons, they'd love to be able to do that. But when you traditionally think about makeup, you think about it's concealing something. Mm-hmm. And I think you can flip that on its head.
Revealing.
Say that your makeup is all about revealing what's inside, revealing their truth. And so it's sort of like, reveal what's inside, or reveal your truth. In the same way, if you think of a Ray-Ban positioning, I think it was 1 year or 2 ago, which I thought was very smart, which just said, never hide. And it was always about putting your Ray-Bans on, which kind of cover up part of your face. But what they were saying was never hide, because in fact, those glasses are so true to you, they reveal more of yourself. Like, you're not hiding, you're showing up. So I think that to get that torsion, to get that interest, I think you're actually speaking to a deeper truth with people, which is, I'm not putting this concealer on to hide something. That scar is not necessarily who I truly am or how I want to be authentically seen in the world. Or if I have acne scarring or something, I don't want that psychologically, emotionally, or otherwise to get in the way of the way I show up. Whether people notice it or not, I know that I'm on my back foot all the time because I think people are noticing it. You know, or cystic acne, or God knows whatever it is. So I think there's this idea in, you know, revealing your truth, or reveal what's true, or reveal your whole self, that I think is really powerful. Because, you know, when you look at the packaging, you look at it and go, it's all about empowering you to show up in the way that is most authentic and true to you in the world.
Simon Mannering, awesome. I love your insight.
Thank you.
Jake, isn't metal awesome?
I love it. I've been in it like 3 or 4 a week since I joined. So,
and you're on almost every call. I think it's great to see you in these too. You know what's nice about someone like you? Because you're, how old are you? 28, 29?
30 in a couple weeks.
30 in a couple weeks, 29. Buddy, you use the knowledge of all these incredible guys around you. You're going to be so much further than we are at our age.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
yeah.
Well, maybe I'll speak at 1 in 10 years.
Well, hey, let's move that.
Actually, I want to give Jake one more example. Years ago, I had a woman come to a conference we used to do, and she'd had a double mastectomy, and she really wanted to support women all around the country that felt a loss of identity, a loss of sexuality, and so on, because they, you know, had the double mastectomy. And, you know, she had this big, massive, these scars that were pretty gnarly. And the solution, we did some just, you know, helped her out a little bit. And she launched this organization called Proud Scars. And she now has a group of something like 5,000 women all around the country that are all celebrating how they fought through cancer, are celebrating how they protected their families and their future by making these tough decisions, who don't hide behind their scars and the choices they've made, but rather celebrate the person that they are that allowed them to make that choice. And I think, in as much as I said you're in the human being business, the product you're dealing with lives on the surface of your skin, but the business you're in is what lives inside you.
So kind of hide your scar, don't let your scar hide you. Yeah,
I mean, but here's another tip I give you. And this is from Nike days. When I started working on Nike, I'd been in London before that, working on Adidas as a writer, doing World Cup and things like that. And when I got to Nike, one day I realized it. They never try and tell you something. In fact, what they do is they assume what they want to prove. So for example, you don't say, hey, if you wear this jacket, you can go out in the rain and you won't get wet and you can go for a run. They say, enjoy the weather. They assume that you're going to be able to do that to prove it. In the same way, you don't need to explain to people that this will hide your scars so you don't let the scar define you. You talk about revealing your true self. You talk about showing up. Let the product portion of it do that, because that's the tool. But the brand is all about how you on the inside show up to the outside world. So assume what you want to prove. And then that way you're going to engage people in the benefit, the emotional benefit they want, plus you'll give your product a role to achieve that end.
Thank you so much.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Let's go over to Dr. Fred. Dr. Fred, how do you want to test Simon? Put him to the test, buddy.
Uh-oh. Well, thanks a lot, Ken, and thanks for everyone else who's on the call. It's been a great conversation. I just love being on the call, so thank you. And here's what I got. I am finding myself like finally in the space that I ever wished that I could possibly be, taking on big, large projects in the world of delivering healthcare online. I've been a major proponent of delivering healthcare online for about 10 years. And I've always lived with this idea that it's actually a superior way to deliver care rather than a cheap stepsister substitute for how to deliver care. As a telepsychiatrist for more than a decade and completely committed to doing telepsychiatry from all over the world to all over the world, I've learned a lot about how to create healthcare systems virtually that work. And I have already been launching into making that who I am, but now it's become a global desperation to have all of these fields. You know, everyone is like, in order to sustain who they are as healthcare, they obviously are going to have to move into telehealth as a delivery system. So I am fairly uniquely qualified to be a consultant, a passionate consultant, an advocate, a stronghold for for all these companies around the world who are seeking that type of delivery. And along with that have also been someone who's been an advocate for revolutionizing the conversation about what mental illness is and what mental health is on a global scale. These two things, one could say that what we're going through right now is a global mental health epidemic. Yep. And a pandemic, in fact, and these two things are coming up against each other as I deliver masteringtelehealth.com, which is a product I own and have built up, as well as welcometohumanity.net, which is the other half of my umbrella brand. And I am so ready to deliver into the world this desperate need and need some assistance in putting together an infrastructure that makes some sense, that can deliver at the scale that is necessary without having to, go through.
Let's I think, Simon, you got enough information, right?
Yeah, let me just respond to that in terms of the opportunity you're looking to solve for. I think you're right in terms of the epidemic. I think you're right in terms of, telemedicine and telecare and so on. And you're stepping into a need that has now been, amplified greatly over the last few months, and it's going to last for a long time. So there's a big marketplace opportunity. I think whenever you need to approach this sort of an opportunity, one of the most powerful things you can do is recognize that you don't need to do it alone, because it's a lot of heavy lifting to do that. And what do I mean? You have to inspire a whole network of professionals to rally around the vision that you have earned and built over the last decade. And then you need to equip everyone who gets the benefit of your service to be an extension of your marketing department and amplify it to other people. So why? Because you're going to inspire people to build this network and take it all around the world to solve for the problem. That'll take some of the burden off you and you'll get more revenue. And at the same time, the patients will build your business for you because you don't have a big marketing department. So how could you do that? You always need a simple, consistent, and scalable message, because you're asking people to be marketers in a sense, whether they're a professional or practitioner like yourself, or whether they're a patient. And they don't know how to do that, and they're not inspired to do it, and they wouldn't know where to begin. That's why you see all of these brands distill all their messaging down to very simple ideas. So for example, Unilever, the biggest CPG company in the world, sustainable living, or Everlane, radical transparency, or Airbnb, universal belonging. All of their marketing and all of their infrastructure is built around these fundamental emotional propositions. I think at just first blush, an opportunity for you to think in these terms might be this idea of shared care. And what do I mean? This is both from a brand and a business and a brand point of view. From a business point of view, we're all going to share the burden of getting mental health and support to the exponential number of people who don't just deserve it, but they desperately need it now, even more so with COVID. So, you know, the whole business motivation is clear. From a brand point of view, well, let me actually pass this out one little bit further. From a practice point of view, shared care means care is something we experience together. It really speaks to the intimate, emotional, equally vulnerable relationship dynamic you establish with your patients. So shared care speaks to the actual experience of the business. And then in terms of branding and marketing, you could launch a model where you inspire, equip, ask all fellow practitioners in your network and all patients to share the care with others. And what I mean by that is every single time someone receives 1 hour of, you know, therapy of a different type, the way they get that is they're incentivized to share it with one other person. And that one other person gets a free consultation. So it's always outbound. So every professional has to share it with their people who have to share it with somebody else. Wow. So shared care is the infrastructure to solve for the problem from a business point of view. In terms of experience of the business, it's the intimacy. You're sharing the care. And there's some nice alliteration there. So it speaks qualitatively to the type of experience they're going to have. And then from a business building and marketing point of view, you actually fundamentally build in the dynamic where fellow practitioners and patients are incentivized to send it out. That way you can scale to meet the challenge with, you know, necessary force. And also you can offset the marketing burden by basically inspiring everyone to build the business with you. Does this make sense?
It's fucking awesome. It is so brilliant. It is so, I waited for what you were going to bring on the back end of this. And when you get to that, when you get to just the virality, you know, excuse the term, but when you get to virality of what you're talking about there, it's just totally brilliant. And I completely appreciate it as an idea to, you know, as an idea to at least consider, if not immediately implement. Really awesome.
Yeah, you're welcome. And also think about it. It's one thing to have someone on a digital platform put out a shingle and say, hey, you need some help and I'm here. It's another for my brother to call me up and say, listen, I know it's been a really tough time. You're a doctor. You've been dealing with all these COVID patients or whatever it might be, or you've had trauma in your own life with the loss of an uncle or whatever. Listen, I can get you to speak to someone for free for an hour. I found them really, really rewarding. Like the trust between patients reaching out to their next of kin or whatever else is light years ahead of you trying to market it to everybody.
It's brilliant.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It is.
Fred, thank you so much. All right, Simon, are you warmed up?
I am. I'm sweating, Ken, in my shorts.
you're not even, you don't have shorts on. You have nothing on. I get it.
I do have pants on. I always get dressed for metal.
I
Every
know you do.
meeting I have, completely naked from the waist down.
Okay, this is a big one now. You ready for the big one?
Yeah.
Let me go to my favorite Thai restaurant, and actually one of my favorite people on the planet, John Sukami. Hey, John.
Oh, no, I feel guilty talking to John. I haven't been there yet of late with my family, and I promised to, and I want to.
What?
You will. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Now, you just recently moved from Westwood to somewhere, is it?
Yeah, I'm in Mar Vista, but like, I swear to God, I've mentioned it to my wife so many times, and then the virus hit, and I'm like, don't. But anyway.
No,
yeah. Hi,
but
John.
pick up tonight. You can go there tonight.
Right? That's true.
Well, thank you. Glad for this session, and hello, all the brothers in the room.
Yeah.
So, Simon, my question is, I guess, we've been pretty blessed, and we're really lucky that our takeout and delivery is doing well. But I still lost at least probably 50% of my revenue since we pretty busy with the dine-in and catering. So those two businesses completely shut down at this point.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking in terms of once the economy come back, once the shutdown is lifted up, I also feel like it's not going to be the same ever again until, maybe 12 to 6 months from now.
Yeah.
But in terms of marketing and branding and what can I do or what can I plan now to have someone walking past by my restaurant or they come to the website and said, wow, this restaurant it's prepared for the COVID-19 and now they are comfortable to come in and dine in, knowing that I already prepared a few things where I think the capacity wise we have to reduce by at least 30 to 40% or even 50%.
Right.
But can I do anything differently or what should I plan now?
Yeah.
Allow people out there to say, hey, come and dine in at Emporium Thai and you'll be worry-free or whatnot.
No, it's a real challenge. I'm on the board of one restaurant chain, and also we've recently relaunched Veggie Grill, and before that we worked on Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf, relaunching them globally. And it's a very hard time, and I've seen all the figures around the restaurant industry. And a couple of thoughts. There's some interesting longer term solutions. I think there's a couple of things I want to say. I think moving forward, the restaurant industry more broadly will go a little bit more e-com, a little bit more delivery, because everyone, not just because there'll be consumer fear, but because the world has been trained how to live more effectively that way. It's more convenient and so on. So I would retool to that end. I'd skew a little bit more. You've looked at Starbucks and they retooled in Canada and the US, all of them to be drive-through. So I think this will be part of the new normal. Secondly, in San Francisco, there's certain restaurants that have started putting in these vacuum sealed pickup windows. So any food that comes out of the kitchen is sterilized in some way in terms of its hygiene, and then the people open on the other side, but it's almost like those banks with those sealed doors in between where one closes, you have to have that closed and go on the other side. So that's another from a technology point of view for consumer confidence. But above and beyond that, in the short term with your catering and your dine-in, people are not going to, and just so you know, I was one of the, people had thinking involved in the Great American Takeout. Did you see that?
Yeah.
A couple of weeks ago. And then the second one where we got 35 restaurant chains around the country and Coke and Pepsi to do it. We did that to retrain people to order takeout because they've been paralyzed. They stopped doing it. And it taught them, you had to literally teach them behavior change by getting them to order again and then to do it again. And it's like, oh, I can order and I'm fine. So that was just a comment. You have to train people. To that end, there is one suggestion which may be valuable or not, is that you have existing customers, or as you say, new customers walking past. And maybe to get them from the point of consideration to commitment, you actually leverage the needs of others. What do I mean? When someone sees an order, you say, with every order you place over $20, a free meal will be delivered to the Cedars-Sinai Hospital for first responders or medical practitioners. And the reason I say that is you are not in the food business, you're in the community architecture business. You have built a community of people who come to your restaurant, who order from you, and it's the love and attention that goes into the food. It's your personality. It's all of that really, you built a community. So this is a time for you to serve that community that serves you. So I could imagine if you had set it up in a way where you not only did email blasts or newsletters or whatever you do to reach your current customers, but also you have it in the front of the store and you say, with every meal over a certain price, or when you order 2 meals, 1 meal will be donated to, you know, the fire station up the road, the this, the that. And there's some way of reporting that back. So when they get their order back, you have people, whoever they are, DoorDash or other delivery people, to take a photograph and send back to them saying, just so you know, you made the night for the practitioners of blah, blah. People will experience your food, number one. They will experience your heart, number two. They will know that someone in need is making a difference, is getting a gift, number three. And you will deepen the bonds between your existing and growing community throughout this viral period. So instead of you trying to do it on your own, use the current conditions to inspire people to make a difference. And I want to explain why, and then I'll stop. When you go in to buy a Tesla, no one tells you to try and buy a car. They try and educate you about the car and show you how smart it is and everything else like that. What you really buy is feeling smart. You know, I think Maya Angelou said, people don't buy what you say, they buy how you, or they remember how you make them feel. You have got to give people in this moment of time the badge value of feeling like they can make a difference as simply as making a food order. And you take care of the rest. You're going to be delivering 35 meals to Cedars-Sinai tonight, 12 meals to the local fire station, and all over your windows are photographs of people at those places receiving their meals. And people will go, I want the food anyway, and I'm kind of a slacktivist, so I want to do something, but I don't really want the hassle. So I'm going to order my food. He's going to take care of it, and I feel good about myself.
It's kind of the old concept where everybody would hang up these celebrities that have visited a restaurant. You're actually hanging up all the meals that you provided.
Meals that you provided. And you do that online, and you do it on social. And then you can reach out to people and say, if you love our food, make an order. Better yet, get somebody else to order as well. Because with every order, we're going to make a difference to these people. And then you post a photograph of this and this and this and that. And people will spend $10. They'll round up $10. They'll do this, they'll do that to make a difference.
All right, we have time for one more. John, was that helpful?
That's wonderful. It's great. Thank you. We already done something similar, but we're going to continue that program and go beyond what Simon said. Thank you so much. Yeah. That's really helpful.
All you can do is put people to work to build your business in the way that they're willing to work or show up right now, which is the only focus on their mind, which is to support people who are really making a difference. Any other selling just backfires right now.
Let's try one more real quick. Darwin, you want to throw your idea out real quick?
Hi, thank you so much. Yeah, we're just starting a new film company called 6 Feet Films. And our tagline is 6 feet separated, 6 degrees connected. Mm-hmm. And we're making 19 short films from 19 filmmakers around the globe, 19 global communities around COVID-19, to make them into 3 feature films to try and make some sort of cathartic experience to document what's happened in history. So we're kind of going out to try and brand ourselves to get everyone, all the filmmaking communities around the world, to mentor up and coming emerging voices in every sort of disparate community. I wondered if you had any advice around that.
Yeah, now, are they films about the virus?
It will be related to the experience of it. So the first sort of 6 to 8 films will be on isolation. The second 6 to 8 will be on connection. And the third ones will be on emergence. So we have Disney very interested in another new platform called Bingeable, who are very keen to launch their $100 million company with this project. But because we're sort of quite new to the space as creators, we're sort of able to put our feet on the ground for the first time. So I just thought it might be interesting to find out what your suggestion would be.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of thoughts that come to mind. One is any production company partner or distribution partner loves any content that brings with it its own advertisers. So in your selection of what stories you tell or who's in those stories, I think with all the appropriate sensitivity, including corporate commitments, can make a lot of sense, because, you know, not only will they support it through advertising, top and tailing the films or whatever else, at the very least they may support it in terms of promoting it, because they've got ad dollars that they can't use in a traditional way. It's like P&G recently did a documentary that won at Cannes, the Cannes Ad Festival, about the role of nurses in identifying for the first time the AIDS virus in the 80s in San Francisco. And when doctors wouldn't touch it because it was sort of beneath them, the nurses showed up. The only time you really heard about them, I think it was Johnson & Johnson. Yeah, Johnson & Johnson. The only time it showed up really for them was at the end. It was a really heartfelt doco about the power of nursing. In the same way, look at a corporate partner and look at what stakeholders they have or workers, and tell that story authentically, so it doesn't seem like thinly veiled advertising, but it still allows you to bring a corporate partner to the table that can help you do that. That can help you get the distribution, because ultimately, you know, the content business at some point is all about advertising at the end of the day, because that's how everyone pays for everything. So that's one thought in terms of those films. You could get one sponsor that would do all 19 films. For example, you know, a Google or somebody that touches all aspects of life, or a carrier like Verizon, or, you know, someone like that. And so, you know, it gives them a content platform that is multi-dimensional, feels very authentic and very timely in a way that they're not going to do it themselves. Mm-hmm. The second thought is what you're really talking about in your tagline with 6 feet, but beyond the COVID virus until the next virus or the next whatever it is, it's really around this idea of proximity between people.
Yeah.
You know, it's really about, I think you're in the business of human connection, you know, and I think that, you know, that gets my wheels spinning about who your corporate partners might be, or how you present these 19 films to people. But
I mean, we're basically going to string them together into 3 feature films. So we probably will have 3 films which will be created of a sort of a thread between 6 to 8 films, each exploring a different topic of isolation, connection, and then emergence.
Right. Well, that's an interesting through line too, in terms of the stages and so on, because it's kind of walking us through this emotional journey we're all on right now, but it's probably going to repeat it in the face of other crises. So I think, you know, you could really position the series in and around, you know, the power of connection, or the power of human connection, or, you know, make a connection or making connections, so that you can actually, you can dimensionalize it. You can say, hey, we want to make a connection to the audience outright. That's number 1. We want to make a connection to our brand sponsor, partner. That's number 2. We want to make a deep connection to the issue itself and what's going on. And we also want to make a connection in an ongoing sense, in this film, in this issue, in this crisis, moving forward. And really what your production company is service of is providing the emotional infrastructure of maintaining connections at moments when people physically or emotionally are forced apart. Does that make sense?
That sounds amazing.
So, you know, every brand has to have something to push against. For me, it's me first, and the company's we first. For you, your enemy, and I talked about this in Metal, what is the enemy? Your enemy are circumstances, conditions, or crises that move people further apart, emotionally or physically. And so you're creating a film series that inspires, unlocks, fortifies, amplifies human connection. And that's something that you can do through all those different levels, in terms of connection to the audience, connection to an issue, connection to a sponsor, and connection through a series of crises that we're going to face over the next decade.
Simon, this is great. I really appreciate you joining us on this. I just want to quickly remind everybody that